And now, please welcome to the stage CEO of Intrepid Travel, James Thornton.
Good afternoon, everyone. This summer, there were two news stories that captured the imagination of the travel industry and that will profoundly change the travel industry. One is that you'll be very familiar with, one you will probably not have heard and have passed up on. But both provide fundamental opportunities for exiting the travel industry and profoundly changing the travel industry as a whole. See if we can get this working. So the first story was that summer of 2023 was the hottest on record. I'm sure that's not a surprise for anyone in the room to be seeing that. It was a news story that captured news channels all around the world at all different times. And if anything, every time we see these news stories, it's irrefutable evidence that a warming planet is devastating our country. Each news story always comes with a cry for change, all of which seemingly falls on deaf ears. Now, I don't know about you, but as an individual, I find it really hard to be optimistic. But climate change is not something that I believe we should be outsourcing to the individual or shaming travelers into believing that because they fly a little bit or they buy a few plastic bottles that they have to solve the challenge of climate change. Now, of course, individual actions at scale can make a very material difference. But I would argue that the largest travel companies in the world, the ones that we have in the room before us today, can make a much bigger difference. The collective influence of this room cannot be overstated in any shape or form. So I think the question for all of us is how can we harness that collective influence to address one of the biggest issues facing our planet? How can we take action to solve the warming planet that we're experiencing? Now, last week I was at the United Nations for a private sector forum hosted by the Secretary General, and we were addressing climate change and the role that private business can take in taking steps forward. Now, I know many businesses in this room have committed to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. It's a 15-year commitment started in September 2015, and so we should be halfway to the target of those Sustainable Development Goals at the moment. But depressingly, we are only 15% of the way there. We've got a massive second half in front of us. In fact, if you were the CEO of a business and you were 15% target, the halfway mark, you'd probably be fired. So for those sports fans in the room, we need to have the second halves of our life to make a difference. Now, the meeting was a valuable opportunity to get out and discuss the role the private sector can make in having a livable planet. But there are a couple of critical considerations for all businesses in travel, it doesn't matter who you are and where you sit, about the role that you can play in addressing climate change. So why should you care about climate change? Well, I'm going to break it to you. There's some very real commercial implications ahead of you. Put brutally, if it's too hot to live in a destination, then it's just too hot to visit a destination. I experienced it myself this summer in Europe, due to go to Sicily at the end of July. It's high 40s during the day, low 30s at night, rolling blackouts, fires impacting the two major airports. We didn't travel to those destinations. It's increasingly happening, particularly in parts of Southern Europe or in North America or Australia, where I live. Now, the other reason why you're going to need to care is there are very real compliance implications as well for all of us. Global regulations around carbon reporting are changing fast. I want you to think of them like accounting standards. Carbon reporting standards will soon be very much commonplace. Now, at Intrepid, we've got a really long history of carbon reporting, nearly 2 decades. Just last week, we've put 500 on our 500 biggest trips, carbon labels, and that is preparing us because we're going to have increased accountability around carbon labeling and around climate action. Climate action is not only the right thing to do, it is the necessary thing to do, it's very much the legal thing soon to do, and it will be a stark reality for every travel company in the world. I just don't think travel companies want to be on the sideline of watching this issue pass us by. We need to take action together. Now, the second story of this summer was something that was totally different in nature, and you may not have read it. It's a headline that's really easy to have just scrolled past and brush off as potentially fake news. After all, how could America be suffering from a loneliness epidemic when seemingly we've never been more connected than ever before, do we? Every single one of us has these devices in our hands. So theoretically, we can contact anyone else in the world at any possible time. Yet, my view is that this illusion of being connected through our phones is actually making us more disconnected. I mean, it's not just here in America. In the UK, where I'm originally from, or Australia, where I live, all major Western societies are suffering from this same epidemic. Now, the US Surgeon General has written a comprehensive report, and I'm just going to share some crazy stats with you. The impact of being socially disconnected, this is according to the US Surgeon General, not me, is similar to that being caused by smoking up to 15 cigarettes a day. The lack of social connection poses a significant risk to individuals' health and longevity. Social isolation increases the risk of premature death by more than 25%. Chronic loneliness and social isolation can increase risk of dementia by 50%. So what's my point? It's a global health risk that's so severe that the US Surgeon General has written something about it. But we, the travel industry, have an amazing opportunity to do something about it. Now, Intrepid's the world's largest provider of adventure travel experiences. We operate trips on over 1,000 itineraries to over 100 countries on all 7 continents. And it's about having immersive experiences, connecting with local communities. It's often the first time our customers get to connect with someone outside of their family or work networks who they don't know all year. But let's be clear, being together isn't solely enough. The really important part, and this is where the industry needs to move the needle, is that it's what happens when customers travel with us and bond with us and have experiences and meet local people. We've just heard about the experiences economy that we're all living in. And experiences and getting people together is actually really good for business. Intrepid grew at a compound average growth rate of over 20% in the 4 years leading up to the pandemic. All key metrics are performing at record numbers this year for us in 2023. And we've just been named by Time magazine as one of their most 100 influential companies in the world. It's clear that experiences is very much on the rise, and that connection is on the rise too. I believe Intrepid and many other travel companies in this room can actually be the antidote to loneliness. And this will help our strategy and drive our approach going forward. So at the start, I mentioned that climate and loneliness can be both existential threats, but also generational opportunities for everyone in travel, and I really mean it. The brutal reality with climate is that we simply won't have a world to show our customers if extreme weather or natural disasters or loss of biodiversity continues at current rates. Can you afford to take it on in your travel business? I'd kind of argue, can you not afford to take it on? And of course, then the threat and the opportunities that come from the epidemic of loneliness will be much, much harder to see. But the stakes are ultimately just as high. Now, we're here today with Skift to talk about connection in the age of AI. And while, of course, we want to focus on harnessing the power of good that comes from AI, I do want you to just briefly consider, how is AI potentially contributing to a more artificial and lonelier world? Our time for connection and human interaction is when we're traveling. But of course, time will tell. Mobiles were supposed to make life easier for us, so let's hope AI does as well. I want to leave you with just going away from today, when you're walking home, think about the headlines that I've shown you, about the climate crisis, about the loneliness epidemic. What can we do as an industry to solve these very material issues? As leaders of some of the world's biggest industries, decisions that you make could really contribute to a healthier planet and more connected communities. But doing this isn't just an exercise in language. It's going to be an exercise in accountability for all of us. Together, we can do more than just change the story. We can actually change people's lives. Thank you very much.